It is a record-setting execution of Ukrainian POWs. And it's record-setting because it is the most Ukrainian POWs that have been executed in a single incident for the entirety of the war. And the number is 16. This is mostly being commented here by the Prosecutor General's Office of Ukraine, but if you don't believe it, the video is readily available online, and what you can see is Russian soldiers taking a bunch of Ukrainian POWs through drone footage. This looks like a Mavic drone of some sort, and you can see that it's using night vision. That's why they're kind of blown up by being white. They're getting all these soldiers to stand in a straight line, one after the other, after the other, after the other. And then briefly after getting them to stand in a straight line, which you can see right now, they then execute them all, firing, bang, bang, bang. And now you can see them all on the floor. This is the largest execution of Ukrainian POWs for the entirety of the war. 16 is a record-breaking number. But this behavior is not rare within the Russian army. We already have UN reports indicating that torture and mistreatment of POWs is widespread and systematic within the Russian armed forces. The Russian government continues to deny the Red Cross access to Ukrainian POWs, as Ukraine allows access for the Red Cross to Russian POWs while in confinement, waiting for trades of POWs back and forth. And we have no reason to think that the culture is shifting. If you, in your media, dehumanize Ukrainians, say that all the good ones already left, so if we bomb Kharkiv, or we bomb Kherson, or we bomb Kiev to rubble, it doesn't really matter, and it's all good because it's in favor of the war effort, which Solovyev, which is the #1 propagandist on Russian state TV, like he says, if that's the message that sent down the troops, how do you think they absorb that? How do you think that actualizes in material reality? When Rusic's leaders, which is a neo-Nazi militia that has been fighting for the Russians since 2014, sorry to burst your bubble if you believed in the denazification myth, when their leadership releases guidebooks on how to properly execute and torture Ukrainian soldiers to not leave certain marks, for example, if you execute them, put a textbook or a phone book between you and the pistol so you don't leave burn marks on the back of the head, which could indicate that you executed them summarily. And when these instructions are released on how to torture, on how to maim, on how to kill POWs, what happens to the people who made those instructions? Nothing. Nothing happens. And that culture of brutality towards prisoners of war festers, and it grows, and it expands, and now we're having record-breaking POW executions in this war. Mind you, the reason we're having this segment isn't even just because of this. This is record-breaking. This deserves its own segment. This deserves its own coverage. We are covering it. We are talking about it. But this isn't even the only recent instance. Just today, and I don't like Visegrad or really using them as a source here, but it was the one that I found quickest when setting up today's stream. Here is another video just released, just made public. Mind you, this is recorded by the Russian soldiers. The last one was recorded by a drone, so you could reasonably suspect that they were doing it maybe under the belief that there was nobody watching. And so that they could act brutally, there's no eyes on them, they can kill as many Ukrainians as they want, and it doesn't matter, right? In this instance, they're recording. And this footage is in front of us, which means that they posted it somewhere. And then that post got shared and shared and shared and then moved around. Maybe they sent it to someone else and somebody else posted it, but they felt proud enough to record it. And now it's public. So it's out there. And so proud enough to send it into the world. In this video, you see this man shoved into the dirt, then mocked with a knife to his neck, and I'm not going to play the video because of TOS reasons, but I will show you what happens. He gets pushed to the dirt on camera. There you can see a frame of the man's face. I don't think it's necessarily helpful in identifying him, but there you go. He gets pushed to the ground. He gets back up. He looks into the camera. They then grab his by the hair, hold a neck to his knife, hold a knife to his neck, and then they have him march out into that field and they shoot him in the back. And that's what they do in the next 2 seconds. They shoot him from 2 angles, in his underwear, falls in the dirt, ends the video. Nobody gets penalized. All of them get to go out and continue fighting. There is no culture around this saying this is uncivil, this is not right, this is wrong. They don't get penalized. They get sent back into the fray. I want to remind you guys that the soldiers that perpetrated the Bucha massacre, the commanders of that unit, when Putin makes speeches on Victory Day parades, they purposefully put that guy behind them and then give them awards. They've already awarded them for valor and such from the Bucha massacre. And then they put them on national television, parade them around as heroes, and he has them over their shoulder in every speech. This type of behavior is not just allowed. This type of behavior has been on multiple occasions rewarded. When they talk about executing soldiers, it is allowed. It is allowed to fester. When they dehumanize them, it is put on TV for not only the soldiers to see, but for the whole country to see. When these types of videos are shared, if you look at the comments on them, they have the most horrific stuff that will make you lose faith in humanity, some type of barbaric savagery that you would think that human beings have evolved past, but obviously have not. And this video will not be the last. I don't even think it'll be the last this month. There will be more, because the Russians will continue to execute POWs, and the ones that survive are not off that much better. Because again, the torture is systematic. Electrocution, beatings, cuts, rape, yes, rape, all used as weapons towards POWs, starvation. You guys have seen the pictures and videos that have come out of Ukrainian POWs after they've left prison. Let's pick up a few of them for a second. They look like Holocaust victims. They look like men coming out of concentration camps. They have starved them to the bone. Contrast that with Russian POWs that have been returned, and there's just no comparison. Some people really try to paint this war like it's morally gray, like there's, war is just war, there's not a good side, there's not a bad side. And it's true that nobody's Superman, and brutality is definitely on every side in war. But to say that everything's the same and there's no differences between treatment or values or what standards are upheld is hogwash. It is, you have been so doomer pilled on the world that it's impossible for you to even see the distinctions in brutality. But if those people who were doomer pilled were put in that situation that this man was put in, like many other Ukrainian POWs were put in, where they were starved to the bone, and I'm just talking about what we can physically see as evidence. Once you listen to the testimony of Ukrainian soldiers seeing rats in the corner of their cell scrambling to grab it and eating it while it's alive to try to get something into their system, it only gets more horrific. We just don't have any physical physical documentation of that, and we're just relying on their word of mouth, which is of course not as strong evidence as just looking at them. The Russians are going to behave this way for the rest of the war. They're not changing. They're not changing. They're not changing. Them getting curb stomped again and again and again seemed to just piss them off more. And so it's only made them madder as they do these acts of brutality. When you look at what happened around the Bucha massacre, it was also when the Russians were getting hammered outside of Kyiv. While, of course, the dehumanization played a part, well, of course, many factors probably played a part. It was probably also the fact that they were getting beat up quite a bit, and then they decided, since they didn't have soldiers to take it out on, they decided to take it out on the local civilians. Separating this army from the civilian population does lead to better protection for the civilian population. We have seen a 45% increase in civilian casualties over the last 4 to 5 month period over the summer months. And that is in part because the Russian army has been able to advance, get closer to cities like Pokrovsk, and then shell the civilian center. Even though, like other cities like Kherson that have been within range for like over 2 years now, they've been getting bombarded endlessly and endlessly. I mean, the locals refer to how the Russians bombard civilians in Kherson with FPVs and otherwise as a human safari. I'm not playing around. The last time I was there, the Russians bombed our aid mission, and my friend John Jones got hit in the stomach. He had to be dragged off the shoreline by Dima, my good friend. We did a documentary on him, The Unevacuatables. Go check it out. It was just a few days after the Novokakhovka Dam was blown up by them, drowning 30,000 animals and many elderly and disabled people in their homes on both sides of the river. And on the Russian side of the river, they didn't even really do evacuation missions. They barely evacuated their own soldiers. They were complaining about it. To the point where some Ukrainians were crossing the river to try to save people because they couldn't get help elsewhere. People dropping water bottles by drones trying to save the civilians. And those are the civilians. These are the babushkas that they supposedly came to Kherson, which they call a Russian city, to liberate. Which they liberate in their words. And then when they get pushed out, apparently they immediately forget about the Russianness of the city and just start savaging it. And if that's what they're willing to do to civilians, what are they willing to do to the men who dared in their hubris to resist the double-headed eel? This stuff sickens me. This is just like pure savagery in the treatment of these people. And calling it anything else is downplaying it.